My name is Noelle Harper, 34 years old, a contract lawyer living in New York. That morning, I was sitting in my office on the 40th floor, preparing for the most important merger of my career when the phone rang. The caller was Ethan, my husband and also the owner of a renowned hotel chain. He dropped one cold sentence: "No, I want a divorce. Right now." 12 years of marriage erased by a single phone call. No reason, no mercy. Only me left behind, hands trembling in shock, staring out at the glittering city that suddenly felt like it was collapsing. Have you ever received a call that shattered your entire life? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe to follow the next chapter, where I uncover the devastating betrayal hidden behind those 8 seemingly simple words. I set the phone down on the desk, my hands still shaking violently. The wind whistling through the glass panels of the 40th floor office felt as cold as Ethan's voice minutes ago. His words had severed the fragile thread I thought would last a lifetime. In that moment of stunned silence, memories suddenly dragged me back 12 years, to when it all began. Back then I was 22, working as a waitress in a small cafe in Boston. One early winter morning, the door opened and Ethan walked in. He wore a dark wool coat, polished shoes, neatly combed hair. Confidence radiated from him, unlike any other customer. At the time, I only knew he was a young businessman trying to launch his first hotel. But to me, Ethan seemed like he came from a world I didn't belong to. I remember the first time he called me over, smiling as he asked, "Have you ever thought you could do something bigger than this job?" I blushed, shook my head. Ethan nodded, as if he already saw in me something I hadn't discovered myself. Then everything moved quickly. He started visiting the cafe often, invited me to dinner, told me about his dream of building a luxury hotel chain, about the cities he wanted to expand to. I wasn't drawn by visions of wealth, but by the burning conviction in his eyes. And a few months later, I agreed to move in with him. Ethan was the one who encouraged me to return to school. He paid my tuition so I could finish my bachelor's degree and then continue on to law school. I still remember the day I got my acceptance letter. Ethan raised a glass of wine and told his friends, "My wife is smarter than any CO I've ever met." In those early years, he really was the husband any girl would dream of. He took me everywhere from New York, Miami to Los Angeles. We spent nights in our small apartment discussing land leases, hotel designs. I even helped him revise minor clauses in his first contracts. Ethan often laughed, put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Without you, I'd never keep up with those lawyers." I believed our love and careers would always grow together like that. But maybe I was naive. As business took off, Ethan changed. He became busier, his travel schedule packed. At first, I thought it was simply the price of success. But gradually, I realized he was rarely there for the important moments. The party celebrating my acceptance into a major law firm? He claimed he was in Chicago. Our 10th wedding anniversary? A text, "Sorry, urgent project from Los Angeles." I tried to convince myself this was just a stressful phase in business. But then the strange signs began to show. One time, passing by the study in our penthouse, I caught him snapping his laptop shut the second I walked in. I asked, "What are you working on?" He forced a laugh. "Just work emails. Nothing you'd care about." That short reply, the averted eyes, planted a crack inside me. Then I noticed unusual transactions in our joint account. Transfers of tens of thousands of dollars to accounts I'd never heard of. When I asked, he snapped, "Are you doubting me? I need to move capital fast, you don't have to worry." But I was a contract lawyer. I knew the difference between cash flow and red flags. The gap between us kept growing. The spacious penthouse in Manhattan turned cold. We sat at the same dining table but had no words left. I looked into his eyes and felt like I was staring at a stranger. One night I tried to bring us back. "Do you remember when we planned the first hotel? You used to say everything was ours. What about now?" Ethan didn't even look up, answering curtly, "People change, Noelle." The words choked me. Yes, I had changed, from a waitress to a lawyer with a career of my own. But was that an excuse for my husband to turn away? From then, the puzzle pieces piled up. Deleted texts, hotel receipts in the middle of New York even though our home was 15 minutes away, a trace of perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his suits. I had ignored these signs too long, unwilling to believe the marriage I gave my youth to could fall apart because of some filthy secret. And then this morning his cold call was the final cut that ended all pretense. I closed my laptop, a quiet fire burning inside me. Anger, but also clarity. I couldn't sit and wait for Ethan to send some humiliating agreement. If he was that heartless, I had to face the truth no matter how cruel. I dialed Maya Brooks, my trusted assistant for 6 years. She was more than a colleague, like a sister. Her voice came through the line, worried. "Noel, are you okay? I heard from Sarah at the office you didn't look well. Maya, I need your help with something. But it must stay completely discreet. No one in the firm can know. Say the word, I'll do it." I hesitated for a moment, then spoke plainly. "Investigate Ethan. Everything. His travel schedule, financial transactions, properties, even accounts I don't know about. I want to know what he's hiding." On the other end, Maya fell silent for a few seconds. I could imagine her sharp eyes narrowing, calculating. "Are you sure?" Her voice dropped. "Once we dig deep, there's no way back." "I know. But I need the truth." 3 days later, Maya walked into my office with a USB drive and a thick folder. Her face was grave, unlike usual. She set the papers on my desk, then looked straight at me. "I found it. But I don't think you want to hear it. Tell me everything." Maya opened the file. Bank statements, lease contracts, even photos. Her voice was steady, though anger flickered in her eyes on my behalf. "Ethan rented a luxury apartment in Brooklyn. The lease is under a shell company, but the payments came from his personal funds." I confirmed. "He visits at least twice a week." My heart clenched. But Maya wasn't finished. "The person living there with him is Chloe Martin, 25, a freelance interior designer. You might remember she appeared at a hotel opening last year. Ethan hired her as a design consultant on a minor project, but afterward." Maya paused, as if the words themselves would wound me deeper. "They became involved." I exhaled sharply, my hand tightening until my knuckles turned white. A name. A face. The vague fragments now locked into place. The late nights, the erased texts, the unfamiliar perfume. It was all true. Maya flipped to the next folder. But that's not all. I discovered Ethan set up a private trust in Chloe's name. From your joint account, he transferred nearly $3 million into it over the past 6 months. $3 million. I repeated, my voice choking. Maya nodded, her eyes flashing with anger. "This isn't only emotional betrayal, Noel. This is misappropriation of marital assets." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Ethan hadn't only betrayed me, he wanted to erase every contribution I had made over 12 years, leaving me as if I had never existed. In that panic, my mind flashed to the prenup Ethan had forced me to sign the night before our wedding. I was young then, naive, not fully understanding the legal jargon. He had wrapped his arms around me and said, "It's a procedure to protect us both. Go ahead and sign, it's nothing." I once thought it was unnecessary caution. But now the memory chilled me. I sprang up, rushed to the safe in my home office. The code was still our wedding date, he had never changed it. And inside I found a thick, worn stack of papers. The prenuptial agreement. I placed it on the desk, hands trembling as I turned the pages. Dry legal terms filled the document, but then my eyes locked on one clause. "In the event either party commits provable infidelity, the other party shall be entitled to 50% of all business assets accrued during the marriage, in addition to their share of marital property." I could hardly believe it. Ethan himself had insisted on inserting that clause. He had feared that I, a 22-year-old girl at the time, might stray. I still remembered his smirk as he said, "You're young, you might regret this one day." I'm only protecting myself. And now that clause would turn into the blade cutting him down. I looked up, meeting Maya's eyes. She had already seen the steel in mine. "You have proof of infidelity," Maya said quietly, "and you have this clause. If we take this to court, Ethan could lose half of the hotel empire." "Exactly. And this time he'll learn the lesson he once thought he was too clever for." Maya squeezed my hand firmly. "I'll stand with you until the end." The next afternoon, while I tried to focus on reviewing a contract, a new email notification appeared. Sender: Mark Feldman, Ethan's lawyer. I opened it. "Mrs. Harper, my client proposes a quick settlement to avoid unnecessary trouble for both parties. Under the terms, you would retain the right to use an apartment in Queens and receive $7,500 per month for 5 years. In return, you forfeit all claims to Harper Hotels." Reading that, heat rushed to my face. 12 years I had stood by Ethan, from the days he had nothing to the time the hotel empire spread across 4 states. And now he thought all I was worth was a small apartment in Queens and a meager alimony check. I let out a bitter laugh. Ethan thought I'd sign that paper so easily? He had forgotten who I was. That evening I decided to return to the penthouse. Cold as it was still my home, at least until the court said otherwise. When I opened the door, the sight cut into me. Ethan's closet stood empty, only a few hangers dangling. The framed photos once lining the hallway, our trip to Paris, the vacation in Miami, our 10th anniversary party, were gone. On the living room shelf, the silver frame holding our picture at Niagara Falls was missing too. I moved slowly from room to room. In the kitchen, half the wine collection was gone. In the bedroom, the wide bed was cold, the sheets disheveled as if packed in a rush. I touched the empty spot where his watch case once sat, and a sharp ache sliced through me. I was standing frozen when the door opened. A familiar voice, low and laced with disdain, rang out. "Oh, still here are you?" I turned. Elaine Harper, Ethan's mother, stepped in. Well into her 60s, she still carried elegance. Platinum hair in a neat bun, a gray cashmere coat, an exquisite leather bag. Her heels clicked against the hardwood, cold as her eyes on me. "What are you doing here?" Elaine set her bag on a chair, slowly pulling off her gloves. "I came to ensure everything is settled properly. Ethan told me about the agreement Feldman sent you. I hope you'll be reasonable." I narrowed my eyes. "Reasonable? You mean accept scraps and walk away quietly?" Her lips curled in an icy smile. "Noel, you should understand one thing. You never truly belonged here. Ethan gave you education, lifted you to places you'd never dreamt of. But," her voice dropped, sharp as a blade, "you were always temporary. And in the end, Ethan finally realized it." Every word was a dagger. But I refused to bow. I stepped closer. "Mrs. Harper, I stood by Ethan for 12 years. I helped build the empire you and your son are so proud of. I remember every contract, every late-night meeting, every idea I contributed. If you call that temporary, then I wonder what permanence looks like." Elaine chuckled softly, pulling a thin envelope from her bag and setting it on the table. "This is a private offer. If you sign and disappear, I'll make sure the media stays quiet. But if you make noise, trust me, Noel, the Harper family has ways of making you regret it." I stared at the envelope for a long moment, then pushed it back toward her. "Keep it. I don't need hush money." Her eyes darkened briefly, but she recovered quickly. "Fine. But I've lived long enough to know women like you always sink eventually." I drew a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. "If you think I'll retreat quietly, you're mistaken. Ethan may have betrayed me, but I won't let him, or this family, erase what's rightfully mine." Elaine studied me a moment longer, her gaze a mix of contempt and irritation. Then she slipped on her coat, picked up her bag, and headed for the door. Before leaving, she turned back with one last jab. "Don't delude yourself, Noel." The door slammed and the penthouse felt hollow and still. Now I understood. The Harper family had never accepted me. They wanted me erased from their perfect picture. I stepped into Victor Hale's office on a rainy afternoon, golden light reflecting off his silver glasses. The man who had once taught me the first principles of law looked up, his eyes stern yet warm. "Noel," his deep voice steady, "he thinks you're a lamb, but you're holding the sharpest knife." I placed the thick folder on his desk. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from the weight of truth in those pages. "Ethan made me sign this prenup, didn't he?" Victor adjusted his glasses, flipping through. I nodded. "He never trusted you. That's why he personally added the infidelity clause. And now," he looked up, a faint smirk on his lips, "that clause will bury him." I closed my eyes, recalling Ethan's smile as he slipped the wedding ring on my finger. Back then I thought it was love. Now it was only a transaction. "I want you to freeze all accounts Ethan is using to funnel money into Chloe Martin's trust," I said, my voice calmer than I expected. Victor nodded slightly. "I suspected you'd choose that path. Luckily, we still hold leverage over most marital assets." "I'll act immediately." 4 hours we combed through every record, every email, every transfer. I no longer felt like the betrayed wife. I was the lawyer fighting the case of my life. "Victor, I don't want this war dragged out in cold emails. I want to look Ethan in the eye so he sees I'm not the same Noel anymore. Then we'll arrange it." A direct confrontation. At Feldman's office. No intermediaries, no detours. A strange fire surged inside me, not pain but strength. The next morning I spent hours in my temporary apartment, digging through old boxes. In a pale blue folder I found the original prenup. My shaky signature from 10 years ago when I was still a naive waitress and Ethan's confident one beside it. I traced the line he had added. In case of infidelity, the non-breaching spouse shall receive 50% of all marital and business assets. A cold clause, but now my greatest comfort. Thank you for never trusting me, Ethan. That evening Victor called, his voice firm. The meeting is set. 3 days from now, 10 a.m. Feldman's office. Are you ready? Outside the window, where rain still fell lightly, the city glowed in the night lights. In the mirror, the woman staring back at me was no longer abandoned, but a steadfast warrior. I'm ready, I answered. Victor smiled faintly. Then prepare yourself, Noel. This isn't about feelings anymore. This is law. And the law is on your side. I still remember the night my phone lit up with a flood of messages, photos, and news links. Ethan walking hand in hand with Chloe at the grand opening of a new hotel in Manhattan. He held her hand, smiling, flashbulbs bursting as if they were the new power couple of the hospitality industry. I sat in the living room, my hand cold but my heartbeat strangely steady. No trace of shock. Only certainty. The very next day my family suddenly appeared. Ryan, my younger brother, who had always treated me as the unwanted child, walked into my apartment with a face painted in fake concern. Stepmother Judith followed, her voice dripping sympathy but her darting eyes busy calculating. We want to help you, Noel, Judith said softly, placing her cold hand over mine. If this scandal explodes, not only Ethan but the Harper brand itself will fall. Think bigger. Sign away your rights to the hotels, and in return we'll protect your reputation. I stared at her for a long moment. That so-called protection was nothing but a demand to cover Ethan's sins. I let out a faint smile. I don't need protection. Especially not from people who care more about a logo on a building than the blood in their family. Ryan's polite mask cracked as he snapped, "Don't make this difficult. If the scandal breaks, everyone loses. Do you really think you can beat Ethan? The same brother our father had coddled, the one who had shoved me out of every family meeting, now panicking because his money was at risk." I calmly stood, opened the door. "Get out. From now on we have nothing more to discuss." The door closed behind them, leaving the room hollow and still. I felt no hatred. They had never seen me as family and the need to pretend was gone. That very night Maya called. "No, I just found documents. Ethan transferred partial ownership of a hotel into Chloe's name. The contract was signed 3 weeks ago, using assets that belong to both of you." I gripped the phone. Every word Maya spoke struck like an alarm. Illegal. She went on, "We have evidence. This is your chance to protect your share and expose his entire scheme." I closed my eyes, letting the night wind sweep through the open window. In that moment I felt both pain and peace. Ethan could betray love, could parade Chloe in a glittering fantasy, but he could never erase the truth written in black and white. Maya, prepare everything. We won't stay hidden anymore. The conference room that day was so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. Floor-to-ceiling glass reflected the cold light, the long dark leather table stretched between us, and at its head, Ethan sat there, smug as if he owned the whole space. Chloe pressed close at his side, lips curved in a mocking smile, a new diamond ring flashing whenever she turned her wrist. Attorney Feldman placed a file before him, voice flat as he opened. "We're here to settle this quickly. Noelle will take a small apartment and limited support. In return, she forfeits all claims to Harper Hotels." Ethan leaned in, eyes sliding toward me with the air of a victor. "It's the most civilized solution. You know, no one wants this to drag on and damage the family's reputation." I calmly set down my bag, not answering right away. In that atmosphere of certainty, I laid out my own files. Hotel invoices stamped in red, records of hidden funds Ethan had siphoned, and finally, photos of him kissing Chloe inside his family's own hotel. Chloe laughed sharply. Pathetic. Still clinging to cheap tricks? I placed a USB on the table, turning it toward Feldman. "On this drive you'll find Ethan's emails to Chloe. Instructions to conceal transfers to alter the books. All encrypted, but luckily I kept the originals. The room fell silent. Feldman's face drained, his fingers twitching as he flipped through the evidence. Ethan shot up, voice harsh. You had no right. This is family business. Ethan, you built this empire on lies. But you forgot one thing. I built myself on truth. My voice rang clear. That calm shook him more than shouting ever could. Chloe's face paled, her eyes dropping as if to escape everyone's stare. Feldman swallowed hard, his words low but crisp. If this evidence reaches federal hands, not only Ethan, but I too will be implicated. I leaned back, letting the weight of silence crush the room. No one dared laugh now. Ethan's hand gripped the chair, his ragged breathing loud, scraping the air. The confidence had drained, leaving raw panic. He circled the table, voice trembling, clawing for power. No, listen to me. It was all pressure. My mother, Elaine, she always demanded proof I could lead. I had no choice. If I hadn't done it, the family would have cut me out long ago. Sweat slid down his collar. Ethan, once the picture of strength, was now a desperate man scrambling for excuses. Chloe shot to her feet, eyes blazing. Family pressure? Don't you dare. You promised to marry me. You swore the penthouse, the hotel shares would be mine. No. In front of her, you make me the mistress clinging to scraps? Her fist slammed the table, water glasses rattling, droplets scattering across the files. Feldman winced. Ethan seized her arm, muttering low. Quiet. This isn't the time. Not the time? Chloe tore free, voice sharp as glass. What about every night in the hotel bed? Was that not the time? Every word shredded their carefully crafted illusion. Ethan turned back to me, his face fractured. No. Oh, you know I once loved you. I was wrong, but it was for the company, for the name. I'll give up, Chloe, give up everything. Give me one chance. We can talk privately away from this. But I was calm, as if the storm had already passed. Ethan, I don't need you to give up anyone. And I don't need backroom deals. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice, for myself. The room went still. Chloe trembled but said nothing. Feldman shut the file, lips pressed tight. I placed my hand on the prenup, the very papers once treated as a joke. Now they were the line I chose for myself. I'll abide by the clause. No more, no less. I don't want this dragged out, and I don't want to take more than what's fair. The agreement was clear. You broke it. And this is the price. Ethan's shoulders sagged, the fight gone from his eyes. He looked around, searching for rescue. None came. I chose to let go, but let go through fairness, let go once truth had spoken. That was all I needed. The final divorce settlement was signed in a quiet office. I sat across from Ethan, watching his shaky pen scratch signature after signature. Each stroke marked the end of years I had once called a marriage. But instead of bitterness, I felt relief. I was freed from the hollow glitter, the gossip, or Elaine's shadow cast over my life. I received 50% of the hotel chain's shares, along with full rights to manage my personal assets. Not a victory, justice. Ethan lost his CEO seat after an emergency board meeting. Chloe vanished from headlines, no more paparazzi shots or whispers online. Elaine, who once strutted into every boardroom as if the world bowed, now stripped of her influence in the company. After the settlement, I legally restored my maiden name, Noelle Carter. I moved to Brooklyn and bought an old 3-story brownstone, worn but warm. The first day I placed my hand on the doorknob, I felt as if I was truly beginning a new chapter. I picked out every chair, every picture frame myself, even spent weekend afternoons polishing each window pane. That space breathed freedom, untouchable by anyone else. By day, I taught commercial contracts at a university in Manhattan. The first time I stepped onto the lectern and saw curious eyes fixed on me, I trembled a little. But as soon as I began to speak, I realized I had come full circle. Back to what gave me meaning. Sharing knowledge, helping the next generation step into the world with confidence and without repeating the mistakes I once made. I also started a scholarship fund for young women, especially those from difficult backgrounds, so they could study law and economics. One late autumn evening, the school held a fundraising event for the scholarship. The hall glowed with golden lights, glasses of wine gleaming in guest hands, the air buzzing with conversation. I wore a simple navy blue dress, more confident than ever as I took the stage to speak. After my talk, many people came to shake my hand, offering congratulations. I smiled, feeling a warmth I had longed for, a kind of recognition not tied to whose wife I had been but to who I was. I was chatting with colleagues when a warm voice rose behind me. "Noel Carter. I never thought I'd see you here." I turned. Standing before me was Adrian Cole, an old classmate from Northwestern. He once sat behind me in macroeconomics and had even invited me out for coffee after our group presentation. 15 years had passed, but his smile was unchanged, genuine, calm, and disarmingly open. "Adrian," I laughed, unable to hide my surprise. "My God, it's been years. What are you doing here?" He raised his glass, shrugged lightly. "I'm one of the sponsors tonight. My company invests in renewable and sustainable energy. When I heard about the scholarship, I thought it was worth supporting. Never expected to see you here." Something stirred in me, as if fate had quietly arranged this meeting, at a time when both of us had weathered enough storms to understand the value of peace. We found a quieter corner to talk. Adrian told me about leaving Chicago, working for an investment fund in San Francisco, then returning to New York to start his own company. He spoke about projects he was funding: offshore wind farms, solar systems for rural schools. His voice deep, his eyes lit up whenever he spoke of a greener future. With him, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. "What about you?" Adrian asked slowly. "I read about you once being in the Harper family, but it didn't seem like where you belonged." I smiled softly, sipping my wine. "You're right. I left. Now I teach and I raise funds for girls like I once was, girls with no one standing behind them." He nodded, smiling gently. "That's the Noel I remember. Always believing she could do something bigger than herself." His words struck me. It had been so long since anyone had seen me that way, not as Ethan's wife, not as Elaine's daughter-in-law, but as simply Noel Carter. The evening ended and I stepped outside with Adrian. Winter's chill brushed my face, New York glittering with endless lights. We stopped on the steps before parting. He hesitated. "Maybe we could have coffee sometime soon? Like the first time back at Northwestern? I think we should." In that moment, I realized life was opening a new path. Not loud, not forced, but simply a chance to begin again with someone who saw me for who I was, not who I had been married to. That night, the hall shone with warm golden light, but my heartbeat raced faster than in any courtroom I had ever faced. I stood quietly backstage, fingers clasped together to steady my breath. When the announcer called my name, thunderous applause erupted. I walked onto the stage, the spotlight blinding, and in that moment I saw faces looking at me with faith and admiration. The Women in Law Award was more than a trophy in my hands. For me, it was proof that the years of collapse, betrayal, and feeling worthless had all led to this moment. I bowed my head in thanks, let the emotions rise, and spoke. "There was a phone call once that ended my marriage. But today I realized that very call gave me back to myself." The hall fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause like thunder. I saw Adrian near the front row, his eyes bright with pride that needed no words. And in the back shadows I caught a familiar figure. Ethan. The arrogant man he once was had vanished, leaving only a hollow shell, his head bowed, eyes empty as he realized everything had slipped away. I felt no triumph. Strangely, only peace. A chapter had closed, a new one opened. After the ceremony, I stepped outside, letting New York's cold wind brush through my hair. The city at dawn held its own beauty. Distant horns, the aroma of coffee drifting from a corner cafe, morning light reflecting off glass towers. I stopped, breathed deep, and felt the difference within me. Adrian followed, his hand gently touching my shoulder. "You did it, Noel. Many women will walk the path you've opened." I tilted my head, smiling. Not the forced smile of the past, but true calm. In Adrian's eyes, I saw not only admiration but something deeper. A connection we had lost long ago, now unexpectedly reignited. I looked up at the brightening sky, thinking of all that had passed. The broken marriage, the arguments, the days when I thought I would never rise again. And now I stood here on a familiar New York street, holding an award, beside an old friend who might become a part of my new journey. I whispered as if reminding myself, "I've come home." And I kept walking, blending into the morning rush, beginning a chapter one knew would be written with truth, with strength, and with a heart that had learned to heal. Sometimes life forces us through bitter losses to reveal what is most precious: ourselves. For me, the call that seemed like an ending became the start of a new journey. A journey of freedom, justice, and faith in true worth. What would you do if faced with the choice of clinging to a decayed relationship or stepping out bravely to find yourself again? Would you choose forgiveness or let go to begin anew? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else out there. And if you'd like to keep hearing heartfelt stories about family, love, and life's turning points, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the new journeys waiting ahead.